Oh well, this is the famous cartouche that some people think is here. These are the Paleolithic caves. This is the best of them, called Chauvet. This is dated.
This is in France, right?
This is in France, and this they date, not us. They date to 31,000 BC or older. This is genius stuff. Great artists did this. Great artists are not primitive. They might be shooting arrows at rhinoceroses to eat, and why not? It's a lot better than going to the supermarket. And organic, or you never heard of a GMO rhinoceros. But this is fabulous work, and who knows what was going on the rest of the time when they're doing this in the dark, hidden away in these caves. And this is 31,000 BC, so the date for us of 36,000 or thereabouts for the Sphinx and all of that is not as out of the question as you think, because they date this to 31,000, and this presupposes an extremely sophisticated artistry, and supremely sophisticated artistry is not done by morons or by primitives. It just isn't. Keep going. Look at this great stuff.
Yeah, they definitely had a very good sense of how to capture what these animals that they worshipped and went after looked like. But it was crazy here. You see, that looks like a rhino down there, and horses.
It is, and the horses, wild horses.
Wow.
Well, maybe not.
So this is Göbekli Tepe, right?
That's the artist's study of Göbekli Tepe.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they've only uncovered less than 10% of Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah, much less. I think it's 5%, something like that. And now it's near the Syrian border, so God knows what they're doing, but they're covering it over because once they started excavating it, been protected by the fill for all of these thousands of years, and it started deteriorating. So now unfortunately, you can no longer see it the way that Chuck and I saw it 6-7 years ago.
So what are they covering it with?
Oh, they've got sheds and roofs over it, and it's completely destroyed. It's magic, but I can't blame them if the weather is getting at it.
Well, when did they discover this?
It was actually discovered in the 90s, 94 or so, and they've been working on it ever since, and it only came into public view around 2004 or thereabouts. And here's some of the detail, and this is why Jacques is fascinated by this, because that kind of thing of the anthropomorphic, of the hands grasping around the corner, they're doing that, or something almost identical to that in Easter Island. We think Easter Island plays a role in this whole lost civilization hypothesis.
Wow.
And that's more. Again, this is raised relief. You have to chop the stone, cut or abrade the stone away from the figures. This is tough to do.
It's 3D stuff. And also, aren't there animals depicted on these things that aren't even local? They're not even available on that continent, nor do they think there's a history of these animals?
I am not sure. But this one is that one there is a kind of a feline of some sort. Hard to tell exactly what it is because it's stylized.
Right.
But it's a pretty brilliant piece of sculpture, and you have to, carve away the whole stone surface in order to get at that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they know or surmise what that is.
Yeah, it definitely looks like some sort of a
like
cat.
A puma, some sort of a puma or something. This is interesting. That's a bead that they found there from Göbekli Tepe, and this is a big mystery in a small bead. Because how did they drill that hole? It's a very, very, very hard stone.
Very hard stone, a very small stone too, because this is sitting in your hand.
That's about the size of the last digit of your thumb.
Yeah, it's tiny.
It's tiny and it's thin.
And so there's a tiny little hole in that.
Right.
And again, we're talking about a time where there was no steel.
That's right.
So how did they do that?
Exactly.
Well, there's a bunch of pottery in Egypt in terms of carved stone pottery, where they have zero idea how they constructed it, with a very thin lip, and then it goes inside contoured.
Yeah, I think we have one of those there. This is a bracelet found recently in Turkey, made of obsidian, which is an almost impossible stone to work with. And the ridges on it, they, again, not us, have found by doing a careful study of it geometrically that it's very sophisticated geometry at work. I forget exactly what it is that's at at issue here, but it's not just a couple of cavemen saying, well, my wife is pissed off at me, so I better give her something nice for our anniversary. So I said, oh, well, here's a nice chunk of obsidian. I think I'll do a little bracelet for her. And
do they know how old this is?
Yeah, it's dated by the strata that it's found in around 8,000 BC.
Wow.
Okay, this is more stuff. This is Sardinia, which is a treasure of megalithic, misunderstood. Look at these extreme, fantastic structures. We think, Shock and myself, that a lot of this may be in answer to this massive coronal mass ejection that happened maybe thousands of years earlier even, and people are still building things to keep them safe from another one of these.
Now, what would be the effect of a coronal mass ejection?
Right now?
Yeah.
A catastrophe.
Right, now it would kill the satellites, and there'd be a lot of issues.
It would freeze the
grid.
It would fry the grid.
Right.
I mean, instantly the only people who would survive are the survivalists. Who are off the grid to begin with.
And those are all assholes.
Well, those kinds of survivalists.
The real problem.
Yeah, those kinds of
preppers.
But other people are off the grid, doing. My pal Clay, who's here, is buying 10 extra acres that I have that I'm not doing anything with, and is planning to, in fact, do exactly that, to go off the grid and build a permaculture, 10-acre self-sustaining little
That's
farm.
A great way to do it, to have like a farm, and if you could afford the land and have solar power and all that jazz, and well water.
Few people are doing that.
It's a great way to do it if it's possible.
There are some people, but when the world is overpopulated to the extent that it is, it's not going to get to an awful lot of people very quickly. It's difficult to do. Yeah, these are the interior of those extraordinary nuraghi, they're called. Sardinia is an incredible place, actually.
And that's in Italy, right?
Island off the coast of Italy.
Wow. And what do they date these to?
Well, they date it to 2600 or so, 2600 BC. And Shock and I question that, but we don't have any data that tells us otherwise.
What is that?
This is the stone circle in Egypt, the Nabta Playa, as it's called, that looks completely fragmented and rough. But in fact, even this, the academics, the archaeoastronomers, acknowledge is astronomically oriented, and there's a physicist, an archaeoastronomer named Tom Brophy, who studied it much more carefully and has found much more sophisticated alignments than just solstices and equinoxes. Again,
that's a common thread in ancient architecture, which is really fascinating, is the alignment with celestial bodies.
Always.
The Mayans were big on that. Yeah.
Always. Well, what they're doing, back to precession, for whatever reason that we don't understand, but with the evidence is there, and festivals and all sorts of things like that are attuned, take place at these critical, let's call them energy points. And what they're doing, and it's quite clear that they're doing it, is that they're orchestrating their entire civilization. They're tuning their entire civilization to the movements of the heavens. This is quite clear, and this you can kind of demonstrate. What they're achieving by that, we don't know. But it's very important to them.
What do we got here?
More of the same.
That's the devil's dick. What is it?
Well, close.
Looks like it.
Yeah, that's Nabta Playa, and that's just the drawing of Nabta Playa. And this gets into complications of the cosmology of it. This is the Dogon. This is the work of my good friend Laird Scranton, who you may know of, I think. Yes.
Yes. And the Dogon tribe, that's the tribe that thinks that they come from the constellation Sirius?
Well, or who think they got their knowledge, yes, that it comes to them directly from Sirius. I don't think they come from Sirius. They might.
Okay.
I'm not sure. But anyway, Laird work started out just as a sort of amateur thing, looking into the cosmology of the Dogon, and at a certain point he decides to see how that matched current technology. He's a techie guy. He's a expert in computer languages and things like that. So he's very good at this kind of work. And he finds that in the first book of his called Science of the Dogon, that this Dogon cosmology of this, rather simple tribe in Western Africa, Mali, I think it is, has their cosmology, which is they know about, they can transmit it, is in fact consistent with the latest wrinkles in string theory and torsion theory and high energy physics and all that sort of stuff. And then that led him to the study of other civilizations, and he's now 6 or 7 books into it. And really what he's doing is it's unrecognized except by a handful of people. They're not bestsellers, and they're written very well. It's very, very simple and easy to follow. He's showing that this complex cosmology is understood and expressed by every society, virtually every society that he's looked into, including the Chinese. That was a relatively recent book, and he's ending up with a master picture puzzle of all of these ancient civilizations, and there's no dating them exactly, but it's become quite clear through this body of work that the ancients had this effectively the same cosmology and the same understanding of it. And we think that this is a hand-me-down from the ancient civilization that we're busy trying to validate. And
So meaning the survivors of this coronal mass.
The survivors of the
people that existed before the coronal mass that had achieved some sort of a high level of sophistication, yes. And then these people with whatever knowledge was left over, whatever they had managed to save.
Something of that sort, or they were the same people who were everywhere and had it to begin with.
What you're seeing up here, figure 12.4, the quantum frenzy can cause a string-anti-string pair to erupt and annihilate, yielding a more complicated interaction. What is that?
Well, that's from the physics lab. Actually, they're talking about, I'm not sure if
so this is like some sort of a geometry thing, or
it's a physics thing.
And they're looking at, this is Dogon art? Is that what this is?
No, but Dogon art has that figure in it. Keep going.
No, down.
Down, I think. Let's see. Because somewhere the Dogon have that. Well, there's.
Where is it, Jamie? Okay.
No. Nope. I think it's the one right after it. Well, it's very close. Let's see. Anyway. You have to read Laird's book.
Yeah.
Science of the Dogon. It's really all there. And then it's the same in all of the civilizations all over the place. And as I said earlier,